Hello everyone. So I wanted to make a quick video today on wave management. And this is an especially good guide for new players. This is something I want to make for new players. So the game starts, minions spawn at 1 minute and 5 seconds. You have the option between choosing between Durance Shield or Durance Blade. Now, which one do you want to choose? In short, you should pick Durance Shield if you think that you cannot sustain off of the minion wave with Durance Blade. Durance Blade gives you sustain, lifesteal when you hit minions, but in some matchups, you basically just cannot touch the wave. Like, let's say I'm against Darius here. I would take Durance Shield over Blade because that would allow me to regenerate HP even when I'm not touching the wave. That's the passive of Durance Shield. And now, when the waves meet in the middle, they're in a neutral state. However, if you start hitting the wave, you know, it's slowly but surely going to push towards the enemy side. And that's when you just want to do something that's called last hitting. This is a part of the game when you really just want to slow push. Want to slow push waves. Now why? Because when you do this, something happens. And what is that something? Well, you slow push the first two waves, and then you shove the third wave. So, you know, instead of last hitting minions, you just shove the wave in as quickly as you can. Now, what does this cause? It helps you to recall and come back to the lane with an item. And at the same time, the wave that I just pushed in, the three first waves that I pushed in, they're here. And they're forcing the enemy minion wave to stand here next to the tower to kill my wave. The waves that I pushed in. Now what does this cause? It causes the enemy next wave to come back to the lane quicker than mine. As you can see that they had the first touch there on the wave, and now because of that, they cleared my minions faster than my minions were able to clear them. And now you can see the difference in the caster minions. They have much more caster minions on their side than I do on mine. And now this wave is just naturally going to bounce back into me. So this is another real game example here. And basically, I'm against an Aatrox as Trundle. Okay. I put a ward to the enemy blue buff in the beginning. It's something that you should do if you plan on pushing the wave. That way you can see the enemy jungler start a little bit earlier. And here I do a little bit of trading. It was kind of aggressive from me to waste my flash like that. But I really just wanted a positive trade on my HP. And this way I was able to guarantee level 2 over Aatrox. And I have a pretty big wave here. I've gathered a pretty big wave, right? And this is a situation where you find yourself being very commonly. So what happens is that the wave is in a position where it's really difficult for a Mumu, for example, to gank Aatrox from this angle. It's really difficult for a Mumu to come over here and gank Aatrox if he's standing here and hitting these minions. So this is really the optimal place for Aatrox to have his wave at this point in the game. This is a really good spot for anyone to have their wave in. And not only this, Aatrox is safe, but it also opens up Viego. It opens up a possibility for Viego to come around and gank me. So there's multiple different situations that you can benefit from by managing your waves correctly like this. And if Aatrox was able to hold the freeze here, then he would be good to go. But let's see what happens. So both of us are hitting the minion wave. Notice how we're not really hitting each other. We're not hitting each other because if Aatrox tried to hit me, and if I was dodging his abilities at least a little bit and hitting his minions at the same time, then in a hot moment he would be in trouble because he wouldn't have any minions here. He would take a lot of damage from them and he would be forced to let me crash the wave into him. I tried to block him there from touching my minions and tried to scare him away a little bit, and there I get the wave crashed into his turret. And I recall. This allows me to recall because now the wave that is coming from here on his side is busy hitting the minions that I crashed into here. They're here. At this point, if these minions from my side went here, Aatrox's minions would already be somewhere around here. Right? And what that would mean is that the wave would crash into my tower a lot faster than if I did this, which is what gives me time to recall. And now there are some situations where you gotta think, what do you want to do? Aatrox probably was thinking about recalling here, but the thing that happens when you do this, right, is that you can come back into the lane with an item. So here I have boots. I came back with boots. It could be a longsword, it could be a health crystal, anything. The point is that if you crash in a wave into their turret, if you slow push the first two waves and crash the third one, then you're allowed to come back to the lane with an item. So let's just watch this from the beginning one more time. See how it goes. Aatrox is here. I arrive a little bit late. And you can see that neither of us are touching the minions. Until now. And because I'm hitting the minions more than he is, and because the wave is pushing into him, that causes me to get level 2 first. So you see, you notice this. Notice this. Like, when I'm here, after I finish trading with Aatrox, you can notice that I'm not really pushing the wave too much. I'm just less hitting. Because every time you hit a minion, you make the wave push into the enemy a lot faster. And now the third wave, because that was a little bit of an awkward moment there, us trading hits and whatever, the wave is here, which is ideal for Aatrox and not that great for me, because I'm in a really vulnerable spot right here. I'm in a really bad position. I could get ganked, Aatrox can really easily run me down if I overextend, and I just want the wave to get pushed in so that I can recall. It's a contest. You need to contest the wave. And because I have an XP advantage, I have a level advantage, and because my champion is a tiny bit stronger than Aatrox in early game, I was allowed to take the recall. And now let's see. Aatrox, he thinks that he's gonna recall maybe, But then he realizes that, you know, I recalled, I'm coming back to lane with an item advantage. So at this point, if he recalled to... he could recall and TP back, come back to lane. That's what I'm saying. But, you know, the thing is that if you have TP, then it's another question if the TP is going to be worth it. And now we can see that, you know, Aatrox is doing the exact same thing what I talked about. He's slow pushing. He's not using his abilities on the minions, he's slow pushing. He's slow pushing, and then you see the cannon minion is surviving. Let's see what he does. He trades with me. And at this point, it's a little bit of a contest too. He allowed me to trim the wave, so I can basically keep the wave here. And you can see it here at this point. At the same time when I'm fighting Aatrox, my wave is smaller than his, which means that let's see what happens after I finish trading with Aatrox. The wave is still going to push into me. But because I did a little bit of a bad trade there, I kept it going really extensively, which I shouldn't have. You know, that I took too big of a hit from that, basically. So, you know, now Aatrox is able to crash the wave into me. And in a situation like this, where you crash big waves, and, you know, you slow push and slowly whittle down the enemy, it opens angles like this, where you can dive the enemy laner with your jungle. But that's not really all too black and white either. Like here, the Viego probably wanted to dive, but, you know, the Aatrox was a little bit unsure if it would have really worked out or not. So, yeah, Viego just ended up wasting his flash. And now what else is going to happen here? So now, I'm stuck in the lane. I don't have TP. Aatrox has TP. And now I gotta think, what do I want to do? I'm basically forced to recall in a bad position. Why is this a bad recall? It's a bad recall because the wave is pushing into Aatrox. The wave is pushing into Aatrox, which means that I'm losing all of these. I'm losing the cannon, the caster minions, the melee minions, and my wave is pushing into Aatrox on top of all of this. And now if Aatrox can trim the wave, then it's going to be really bad for me. Luckily though, because I had the level advantage, I was able to crash the wave again into Aatrox. And because of this, I was able to get grubs. And this is what I talked about earlier when I said that it's really important to understand when you should be freezing and when you should not be freezing. Imagine if Amumu was here, and instead of me being here, I would be around here with Aatrox pushing me in. Aatrox could push the wave to crash into my turret, and then he could go down the river, and because Aatrox is 6 and Amumu is 5, Aatrox could surely kill the Amumu here, especially when he has no flash. So you can see here that because of how I handled the wave, I secured the grubs for my jungler. And even if Diana decided to come over here, it would still be me and Amumu. We could go down here. Aatrox would, he's still stuck here at this point. So I hope you can see the benefits of knowing when to freeze and when to push. And you can see here that Aatrox, after the wave came, around here, you know, when I crashed it, you know, the same process repeats itself over and over again, as long as you manage the waves the same way. So Aatrox is not slow pushing, or he wasn't. But now that he sees that I'm in mid lane, he sees that I'm in mid lane. So he wants to push the wave really quickly. Because what this means for him is that he is allowed to just hit the tower and get plates. Now you might ask, why did I go mid lane? Let's see what happened. So going back to the moment when I crashed the wave, I go help Amumu with the grubs, and we take the grubs, and I decide to go with Amumu. Why? Because of the position of the wave. So you need to understand that when I crash the wave under here, it's going to bounce. And now, if Aatrox doesn't push this quickly, then what is going to happen here is that there's going to be a big wave here waiting for me when I come back to the lane. And now at this point, Aatrox doesn't fast push the wave because he doesn't see me. He doesn't know. He thinks that I'm just coming back to the lane like this, which is why he's slow pushing. But look at what happens. As soon as I show up on the map, he starts fast pushing. Yeah. He's fast pushing, and now this is something that you need to take into consideration as well when you're playing. You need to recall often enough, because if you don't, like this, like I've been on the field for a pretty long time, I'm kind of running low on mana, but I really don't want to miss this wave. That's why I'm coming back here instead of recalling. So, you know, there's a price to pay with everything you do on the map, you know? And let's see, what do I do after that? The situation is that Aatrox has a longsword and a ruby crystal. I have boots of swiftness. So it doesn't really make sense for me to fight him right now. So I just recall. And I was basically forced to recall here. If you look at my situation here, there's realistically not much I can really do here. I'm so low on mana, I just have 100 mana. Yes, Amumu is topside, but if I stayed here, I wouldn't really be able to do anything because I have 100 mana. Grundle's ultimate costs 100 mana. One of his bites, if you bite with Q, costs 20, and you know W is 40. Healer is 75. So I'm forced to recall here. Even if, you know, like Amumu was here, you know, and if this would be a really good gank angle, it's just not going to happen because I overstayed on the map. I don't have enough mana. But, yeah. That's all I wanted to say a little bit more. Now, what can I do about this if I was in a real game? So, I could trim this wave if I am strong enough. It's something that you cannot do in every situation. Sometimes the enemy laner is just too strong, in which situation you need to stand back here and just let the wave crash into your tower so you can CS it. And yeah. However, if I was in a situation where I could touch the wave like this, then I would want to trim it. I want to trim the wave And now what is going to happen here is that the wave is not that big anymore on the enemy side. Now, if there was an enemy here, they would want to recall. They want the wave to go under my tower so that they can do the same thing that I did to them on the first 3 waves. However, if you are strong enough and if you can contest the wave like this and if you can trim it, then you can set up a freeze like this. And as a rule of thumb, you should pretty much leave 2 caster minions and 2 melee minions alive if you want to set up a freeze and not tank you HP, because if you set up a freeze with too big of a wave, you might have to just let it crash into your tower completely, or then you'd have to tank it. You know, if you are playing a champion that's not Warwick or Trundle, then, you know, you're probably not going to be able to sustain, and, you know, then you have the enemy laner here as well, you know, fighting you, you know. It's just safer to do it with 2 caster minions, 2 melee minions. It's a rule. And then if there's a cannon wave, you just let it hang around like this. Yeah. So this is another game example, a real game example of why freezing can be useful. So I'm playing against a set, right? And it's been pretty rough for me. So, you know, set is level 6 and I'm level 4, okay? And he just crashed a huge wave under my turret. He recalls. And at this point, no matter what I would do here, the wave is going to push into him. And I cannot fight him under any circumstance here, basically. He has an item advantage. And Set in general is quite a bit stronger than Trundle. So I really don't have any kind of a choice here. Nidalee is on top side, and Set is around here. If I went and tried to touch the wave here, you know, Set would just raid with me. And if he was smart about it, he would not push the wave at the same time. He would keep the wave in the spot that it is in right now. He would poke me down, and I would not be able to approach the wave. And if he wanted to, he could keep it like this for as long as he wants to. So ultimately, freezing is a very good way to prevent your opponent from getting XP and gold altogether. So now I was not really feeling it this game. So instead of going to lane, I go and roam. If I cannot really do anything top lane, then what am I going to do by staying there? So I try to look for roams and Set decides that it's time to break the freeze. He breaks the freeze and he pushes because he knows that I'm not here. You know, I roamed, but I came back. I came back to catch the wave. But if you look at my CS, and if you compare it to Set, then he has 74 and I have 37. Now, the only reason why I'm even in gold with him is because I have 2 kills. That's basically it. So now let's see what happens here. This was a good example of what happens if you don't shove in a wave properly. So Set, he pushes the wave, I come in, and he just leaves. And he doesn't push this wave in properly, which causes me to be able to trim it and set up a freeze on my side. So it's really important to remember that whenever you are rushing a wave, you really need to make sure that it goes and hits the tower and that it really gets under here. Not in a position like this, where, you know, your opponent can just trim it and, you know, set up their own freeze. And setting up a freeze, from my perspective, is really beneficial for me, because I cannot fight Zed anyways. So I don't really want the wave to push into him, I want the wave to push into me. But of course, because he is a lot stronger than me, I can't hold it. But it allows me to get a little bit more minions than if I just, you know, try to shove it. So, yeah. And now here, he crushed it. I just fast push the wave because I know that he's going to freeze it anyways, regardless of what happens. So I just get the minions really quickly and recall. But then I realized that I'm kind of messed up my situation anyway, so I might just throw. And now see what happens here. Zed does the same thing. He only last hits the minions and he keeps the wave in a state that it's pushing into him. This is unplayable for me. I cannot do anything here. So I roam, I go to mid lane, and this is when Zed sees that, oh, Trundle is in mid lane, time to push the wave. So this is probably not the best example, but I hope you get the twist here. So let's say that grubs have spawned, okay? Grubs have spawned, this grub's here, okay? And both my jungle and the enemy jungle are here. They're fighting for the grubs. And let's say that I was freezing the wave here. Okay? Can you see why it's a bad idea for me to freeze here? The thing why it's bad for me to freeze my wave here, even though, you know, I might be like, oh yes, I'll be preventing my lane opponent from getting golden XP, you know? Wouldn't that just be good for me? But in fact, it's not. Because look at what happens here. If I'm freezing the wave like around here, the enemy top laner has all this space to walk around. So, you know, you see what they can do. They don't even necessarily have to stand here. And chances are that if I'm more powerful than them, they probably won't be. They'll probably be standing around here, or maybe camping the bush here, and just like hovering in this area here. And just by doing that, they have a lot faster access into the river. So they can really easily get into the river, like this, and they can help their jungler. And then they'll just, you know, kill mine. And I cannot really leave here, because if I'm freezing, I have minions coming, you know, all the time over here that I need to clear. You know, last hit them and make sure that the freeze doesn't break. But by doing that, I'm kind of sabotaging my own jungle by not going around and helping them. So let's take a situation where, for example, I did the opposite. So, you know, I would slow push waves, I would freeze here, hold a freeze, and, you know, grubs would be just about to spawn. You know, the junglers, they would be making their path top, like this, and then I would be here, and then, you know, my jungler would finish their camps around here, and then I would push in the wave, all the stacked waves that I have here, and push a huge wave, you know, under the enemy turret. They would be stuck here, And, you know, I would just go here. I would have all this, you know, space for myself. I would go here. And I would help them do grubs. And then at this point, the enemy jungler might be pinging, you know, my top lane, enemy top lane, and that, yeah, why don't you come and help us? But, you know, they can't, because they're stuck under their turret with a huge wave. They will be able to come eventually, but by the time they've arrived, you know, we've almost done the grubs here. And, yeah, at that point, it's just up to the mid laner to decide what happens. But, yeah, it's kind of your job as a top laner to secure objectives from the top side and prevent the enemy top laner from getting them with the enemy jungler. So